Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 8 of What If Naruto was sent to the fairy tale universe. If you guys enjoyed this What If and want to see part 9 of it, comment down below and let me know. Also check out previous parts of this What If. I have created a playlist for this What If where you can find all the previous parts, link is in the description. And also go ahead and check out other What Ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content, it really means a lot. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. The next day greeted Naruto with a hearty breakfast, and then a light jog around town. It ended up turning into a game of tag after Natsu and Happy managed to find him, and everything went downhill from there. Many an innocent stand was overturned in their joy, their boisterous activity creating enough of a racket that they couldn't hear the vicious insults hurled at them as they left their trail of destruction. The game eventually ended with Naruto choking out Natsu, Happy squawking discontentedly from between Naruto's legs. "Come on, say uncle. You know you want to. Just give up, it'll be easy." Natsu's face began turning purple, but he resiliently held firm, gurgling incoherently. Naruto continued to laugh until he felt Natsu's flapping subside, at which he looked down. Seeing no movement, he released the hold. "Are you okay there, Natsu?" Slamming into Naruto's back full force, Happy started pouncing on his shirt, tears streaming down his cheeks. "You killed Natsu. Why would you kill Natsu? We had such a full and happy life together." His rant was cut short as Natsu's hands exploded into flame. Naruto quickly found himself in a tight hold, not all that well constructed, but rigid enough for him to be unable to escape. "Ha! You say uncle. Just do it, you know you can't win now. Bow before my awesomeness." Shifting his mouth from under Natsu's armpit, Naruto spluttered for a moment before giving up. Alright. I can't take any more of your armpit." Releasing him, Natsu jumped high in the air and began running circles around the blonde as he wiped off his tongue, desperately trying to rid the flavor. Spitting one last time, Naruto made a foul face before standing. Dusting himself down, Naruto grabbed the boy and his cat as they passed him again. "So where were you two going anyway? I mean, before tag." Their eyes widened as their previous mission was remembered. "Oh yeah, that's right. We were off to Lucy's house. We always visit her, wanna come?" Shrugging, Naruto gave in. "Yeah sure, why not? What's she usually doing this time?" Tapping a finger against his chin, Natsu looked at Happy. "Well, sometimes she's writing stuff, but mostly she's in the middle of having a shower." Grinning, Naruto placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. "Lead the way." Nothing quite beats a morning soak. It's what every growing girl needs. Maybe I should write some more while I have a morning off." Wiping away the last of the water droplets, Lucy wrapped a towel around herself and stepped out into her lounge room. Steam billowed out the door and she waved her hand around, clearing her vision. What she didn't expect to see was Natsu and Happy stretched out on her bed, Grey relaxing in her chair near naked, and Naruto sifting through her desk. Looking over, Grey raised a hand. "Yo, how was the shower?" Eyes grown wide, Lucy pointed at him disbelievingly. "What the hell are you doing here?" Looking over, Natsu picked his nose. "I dunno, hey. We met him along the way and he came for some reason. I didn't invite him." Launching out with a kick, Lucy upturned her mattress and sent the boy and his cat to the floor. "That's not what I was asking. I want to know why you all are even here." Looking up from under the bed, Natsu pouted. "Well, we came to say good morning and see if you had any food. Happy found some fish but not much else, so I was waiting till you got out to see if you had a secret stash somewhere." Pointing at the door, Lucy stomped her foot. "Leave. Now." Crawling out, Natsu started whining. "But why me? Why do Grey and Naruto get to stay? All of you?" A cold shiver went down her back as Naruto let out an amused laugh. "This stuff ain't half bad. You write this." Screaming, she dashed forward and snatched the papers from Naruto's hands, body checking the blonde into the wall. "Don't read that." Sitting up, Naruto raised an eyebrow. "What's wrong?" "It wasn't that bad." Clutching them to her chest, Lucy wriggled around uncomfortably. "But it's not ready to be read yet. It's embarrassing." Letting out a bark of laughter, Naruto shook his head. "No, that's not embarrassing, even the bits of kissing and stuff in it. You should have read my sensei's stuff. It was basically porn in words. That was embarrassing. I had to proofread his books." Looking at him incredulously as he shivered, Lucy then glanced down at the sheets by her chest. "How much did you read?" Naruto shrugged. "I dunno, about half of it." Blushing heavily at the knowledge of what he saw, and how closely he came to seeing a whole lot more than just kissing, Lucy pointed at the door. "Out. All of you. Get out." No one moved except Natsu, who dropped back onto the bed. "But Lucy, it's boring. Besides, you have such a nice house. It's comfy and smells nice." Naruto nodded in agreement, while Grey started shuffling around. "Yeah, I can't really say how good it smells, but it really is pleasant for the cost of the rent." Lucy then froze as a pair of dark boxers floated over the chair, landing smack on her face. The three males and one cat now found themselves sitting on the street, Naruto poking fun at Natsu and Gray, being the only one who escaped a beating from the slight girl. After living with Sakura for so long, dodging, or at least, attempting to dodge, various female punches was just as ingrained into his defenses as blocking with a kunai was. It took a while, but eventually Lucy came wandering out, her eyes closed in frustration as she locked the door behind her. Tucking the key away safely into her belt, she turned and sighed. Honestly, it's bad enough you two came, but Naruto, I thought you'd be more mature about that. Looking up innocently, Naruto pointed at Natsu. He said he visits all the time. How was I meant to know you didn't like it? Glaring at him for a moment, Lucy nodded. Well, alright. But just this once I'll let you off. Walking between them, Lucy ended up by the river that ran past her house and stretched. So, what are we doing today? Natsu jumped up, eyes blazing as an idea sprung to mind. I know. How about we go challenge Erza to a fight? I could totally beat her this time around. Looking at him worriedly, Lucy wondered about his mental state. Gray just smirked and looked up. Really? You do remember the time before? And the time before that? And the time before that? Natsu just grinned and slammed a fist into his palm. Nah, I'll definitely win this time. I can feel it. Shrugging, Gray rose to his feet. Hey, might as well go watch. It's always entertaining watching Natsu get his head kicked in. Lucy, Naruto, you coming? Lucy nodded hesitantly after a moment, but Naruto shook his head. Nah, I gotta go check on some stuff. I'll come around later. Suit yourself. You're missing out on a free laugh, but hey, I already said I'd win. I'll believe it when I see it. Fine. Happy, let's go. Bye. Dashing off down the street, Natsu went in search of Erza, while Gray and Lucy finished up with Naruto. So, you sure you don't wanna come? Shaking his head again, Naruto held his hands out apologetically. No, I really do need to check on these things. Catch you later, yeah. Nodding, the two bid their goodbyes and left, Lucy waving over her head a while longer than Gray. Sighing as he watched them leave, Naruto turned and started running. Heading out of town, Naruto slowed to a stop once clear of prying eyes, and calmed himself. Quickly drawing on the natural energy, Naruto felt himself fill with the power surrounding him, and opened his eyes. A quick check around verified no one was watching, and he took off again, double his previous speed. Heading for the beacon of chakra he had left behind, Naruto frowned. He was becoming too attached to the people here and the peace. It was a lovely holiday and almost everyone here were wonderful people, but there were pressing matters at home he just couldn't ignore. He knew what happened after the whole pain episode. He still had that unresolved thing with Hinata too. Jumping over a tree, Naruto landed easily and began cutting through the forest, bypassing the path in favor of a straight line. He just wished he knew how Kakashi-sensei's Kamui worked. Did it just send his targets to this one dimension? Or were there multiple dimensions? Did he even have control over where they were sent? These were just 3 questions Naruto wished he could answer, and he guessed there were heaps of others that he hadn't thought of. Pondering these thoughts, Naruto reached his destination within 15 minutes, skidding to a stop beside the still airborne blue mist. Nothing had changed except the amount of the stuff, Kakashi's chakra a good deal smaller than when he visited last. Now that he was here though, there wasn't a lot Naruto could do that he hadn't already tried. So sitting down, Naruto deactivated Senjutsu, closed his eyes and began to think. So, what now? This is like my only way home. How am I meant to follow Kakashi's chakra into infinity? Alright Naruto, consider your options. What can I do that might open it up? Kakashi's chakra is one thing. But how would I use it to open the hole? Maybe I could use it to crack a new hole beside it. Or, I don't know. Seals, perhaps. It could work, but I don't think I know enough yet. Probably should have listened more to Iro-san. So that could work, but with a lot of studying, but then maybe. Opening his eyes, Naruto found himself in the sewer of his mind. Looking around, he frowned. When did I get dragged in here? Turning to the familiar foul tunnel, Naruto began walking. The oppressive chakra mass he had been captured to his whole life steadily grew as he neared the end. Finally reaching the entrance, Naruto turned and looked up at the massive cage now before him. What do you want? A deep rumbling growl echoed through the cavern as a pair of enormous bloodshot eyes opened and focused on him. They moved closer to the bars of the cage and dropped so they were only a mere 20 feet above his head. Thin lips then pulled back revealing a mouth packed full of gleaming white teeth as the demon began to speak. Rat, you know what I always want. To get this thrice damned seal off my cage. And I was so close so close. Slamming its head against the bars in a momentary loss of temper, the whole room shook from the power of the blow, a loud boom echoing down the surrounding tunnels. To think that your pathetic Hokage managed to seal me yet again. But enough of that. I've been trying to contact you, but it seems I haven't been able to get through till now. It must have something to do with the Titan seal. What I want to know is what this putrid chakra you've been filling my realm with is. Frowning, Naruto looked around. Nothing seemed different. What are you on about? Nothing's different. Growling again, the fox shivered in barely constrained rage. Don't mock me, human. You damn well know what I mean. Ever since that incompetent sensei of yours managed to teach you his senjutsu, you fill this place with natural energy. Recently, however, this new and desirable natural energy floods the place. Holding his hands out, Naruto looked around again. But where is this energy? Finally losing it, the fox lashed out, slamming its massive head against a cage wall. Are you honestly that dense? Activate that senjutsu of yours and draw the energy in here. Frowning as he was scolded, Naruto looked away and began to draw upon the nature around him. Well, he wasn't one to usually listen to the demon's demands. This one made him curious. When he felt the levels even out, Naruto's eyes widened in surprise as the fox spat off to the corner, its fur bristling as its energy warded off the invading energy. This is what I want to know. What is this? Looking around in awe, Naruto shook his head. I really don't know. The actual reason for Naruto's awe and the fox's discomfort was floating in the air around them. A soft gold light had flooded the place, denser amounts here and there clumping together to produce brighter spots that vaguely resembled little stars. All in all, it was quite beautiful. The fox, however, seemed to think otherwise. We'll find out. This is nothing like the normal energies I'm used to. Its presence disgusts me, not to mention it keeps trying to enter me. Snarling, the Kyuubi unleashed a powerful wave of chakra which bowled Naruto head over heels as it tried to force the gold light back. Landing against the far wall, he looked up at the Kyuubi in a daze. Find out what this stuff is and then tell me what you find. I will not be contaminated by it. Naruto shook his head as he cleared the last of his stars. But why do you hate it so much? It feels normal, doesn't it? Casting an eye around the room, the fox shook its fur. I never trust what I do not yet know. Now will you tell me about this when you find out, or will I have to drag it from you? Ignoring the threat, Naruto realized this could be an opportunity to find a way home. Alright, but I want something in return. I'll find out what this is, and when I do, you help me find a way back home. Deal. Frowning, the fox looked at him. Home? Naruto nodded. I've been transported to some weird new dimension far from the elemental nations. I have no idea how to get back though, and I really need to. The fox nodded as it understood the situation. So that's what happened earlier. This won't be easy with you being limited to but 3 dimensions, but I wish to stay in this wretched dimension even less than you do. You have yourself an accord. Grinning up at the fox, Naruto stood. Good. I'll go talk with Mirajane now and see if I can clear this up. You be okay to hold this off a little longer? Blasting out another shockwave, Naruto covered his face as the power of the demon buffered him. Do not mock me, vermin. Get out of my sight and uphold your end of the bargain. Not wishing to agitate the beast any more than he should, Naruto merely closed his eyes and faded from sight. Coming to, Naruto looked down at his hands and opened and clenched them several times. Despite his secret amusement at the fox's hatred of the odd gold light, Naruto found it incredibly fascinating. It didn't feel too much different from the natural energy of his world, but whatever it was seemed to want to merge with the fuzz bag. Standing, Naruto looked at the slowly circling ball of chakra hanging in the air. Standing here wouldn't solve anything, so turning, Naruto leapt to the nearest tree and kicked off into the air. Mirajane, I got some questions for you. Bounding into the mess hall, Naruto avoided the flying tables with ease as he ran around the growing bar fight, heading for where he knew the white-haired woman worked. Skidding to a stop in front of the bar, Naruto belted a chair clean out of the air from behind him without even looking back. Mirajane. Laughing, she walked over drying her hands on a towel. Yes, Naruto, I heard you the first 2 times. What can I do for you? Pointing at the mess behind him, Naruto raised his voice over the growing noise. Can we go outside quickly? I really need to ask you some questions. Smiling apologetically, Mira gestured to the dirty bar and the patrons waiting to be served. I'm sorry, but I have work that can't be left. Maybe later. Shaking his head, Naruto pushed on. But what if you could have some help, just while you're gone? I suppose that could work. Woo. Crossing his fingers, 3 female clones appeared beside him, all dressed in skimpy maid outfits. Quickly getting to work, the fight behind them quickly fell apart as the men realized their favorite barmaid was back, and in greater quantity too. Grabbing Mira's hand, Naruto pulled her over the bench top, and then ran with her up and out of the room, the girl laughing all the way. Entering the main hall, Naruto spotted a clear table and aimed for it. Helping Mirajane into her seat, Naruto dropped down in front of her, grinning happily. Sighing at his boisterousness, Mira folded her hands on the table. So, what is it you have to ask me? Now actually confronted with the question, Naruto paused as he considered how he should word it. He couldn't just out and say, hey, there's a big demon fox in my gut, and he wants to know what the glowing light inside my head is. So, frowning, he slowly trotted around the question. Well, I'm actually wondering what is up with the energy here. In my home dimension, I have learned how to absorb nature energy to boost certain areas of myself, like strength and endurance. However, everything here feels different. The energy in the atmosphere is, I dunno, just different. And, I also went inside my own mind while meditating before, and saw it filled with this golden light. Would you have any idea what that could be? Frowning as Naruto explained, Mira chewed on the inside of her mouth for a moment. So, you can actually pull the energy of nature into yourself. Naruto nodded. But otherwise, it isn't in there naturally. Naruto shook his head. No. The problem with learning this actually comes from being overwhelmed by the natural energy. Lose yourself to it and you turn into a toad statue. Mira's eyes widened when she heard this. Really? That's odd. Tell me about that later though. You also say you can enter your mind. How do you mean? Scratching his head, Naruto struggled for an answer. Well, actually, it's more like a giant room, I guess. I sometimes go down there, but not much. But yeah, while I was there, I drew in some of the natural energy and yeah, the room then filled with gold light. Still not quite understanding the room explanation, Mira let it go. The gold light though, she knew what that most probably was. She just had to identify something first. Naruto, this chakra you are always talking about. Where does it come from? Scratching his head, Naruto frowned. Well, inside me. I generated and stuff. We were told exactly how in academy, but that was so boring I slept through it. Or flicked boogers at the teacher. Why is that though? Mira held up a hand. I'll answer in a second. So, you say that this chakra comes from within? That there isn't any other chakra in the air or anything like that? Naruto looked up and thought. Well, no, I don't think so. At least, I can never remember anyone saying so. Nodding, Mira was fairly sure what everything was now. Okay, I think I can help you now. You say that your chakra is created inside you. Well, us mages, we can't do that. We actually absorb it from the atmosphere in the form of something called Eternano. We store that in a container within ourselves, and that then is what we call upon to create our magic. Naruto pursed his lips as he digested the information. So, you say that everyone who lives here is a mage because everyone's power is in the air. Mira shook her head. No, only about 10% of the population is able to actively use magic. It takes a great deal of concentration and will to use magic. Oh? A smile slipped onto Naruto's face though when an idea crossed his mind. Hey, seeming I can pull this stuff into me, does that mean I could learn magic? Mira's eyes lit up and thought. Well, I suppose you might be able to, I doubt it though. You have to be born with the ability. Not ready to let go of that idea just yet, Naruto started jiggling around, his infectious smile shining brightly. Hey, could you show me how anyway, just in case I can't? Please. Rolling her eyes, Mira sighed. Fine, I suppose so. Where do you want to try? Standing, Naruto started walking to the door. I really like that big open plain out behind the city. Can we go there? Frowning, Mira shook her head. That's a bit far. It'd take us too long. Grinning, Naruto stuck his tongue out. Nah, I can get us there quick. Like, within a minute or 2, or maybe 5. But still. Please. Raising an eyebrow, Mira studied him. He didn't seem to be lying. How would you do that exactly? Swooping in, Naruto swept the girl off her feet and picked her up bridal style. Naruto, what are you doing? Laughing, Naruto ran to the door. Just watch, this is how. And with a startled scream from Mira, Naruto launched the two of them high above the roofs with a mighty jump. Landing a few minutes later, Naruto landed and dropped his passenger, who was still laughing after the exhilarating experience. That was amazing. I've never seen anyone travel like that. Stepping back, Naruto scratched his head happily. Yeah, well, that's how all us ninja travel around my village. So yeah, back to my training. Shaking her head at the insatiable boy, Mira sighed. Alright, well first, enter this energized state you have been telling me about. Nodding, Naruto stilled. It took a few moments, but he opened his eyes revealing the transformation. Staring intently into his eyes, Mira gasped softly as she took an unconscious step forward. Wow, this is a byproduct of this state. Your eyes though, they look so much like a frog's. And the eyeshadow, beautiful. Naruto started looking around awkwardly as Mira edged ever closer, her hand reaching out to touch his orange-rimmed eyelids. Coughing, he tried to smile. Yeah, they're more like a toad's. It's called senjutsu. Realizing her close proximity, Mira blinked a few times before blushing and stepping back, a hand on her face. Oh, please excuse me, I do get carried away sometimes. So, time to practice. Seeing Naruto nod eagerly, Mira giggled. Magic is a physical embodiment of the spirit. First thing you need to do is reach out with your spirit and touch the flow of energy within you. Can you do that? Frowning, Naruto closed his eyes as he internally reached around. I'm trying, what's next? Mira hummed as she thought. Well, after that, it kind of just happens. Whatever you're naturally affiliated with will most likely happen. Like with Natsu and his flames. Not responding, Naruto continued to dig around inside himself, desperately trying to touch his spirit with the energy filling his body. Mira fell quiet as she watched him struggle, rather impressed with how determined Naruto was to obtaining a magical ability. As he worked, Mira slowly became aware of a hint of something in the air. She couldn't quite put her finger on what it was, but it felt familiar. It quickly faded however, leaving Mira with a slight hint of disappointment. Naruto seemed to grow fidgety after this and within a few moments, opened his eyes. Sighing in frustration, Naruto scratched his head. Nah, nothing. And here I was getting all excited too. Shrugging, Mira smiled at him comfortingly. Well, anyone who can use magic is born with it. I thought you may have been an exception, what with you being able to draw it in, but I guess not. I thought I felt something there for a moment, but it turned out to be nothing. Widening his eyes, Naruto looked at her. Really? I didn't feel anything. Mira sighed. Ah well, not to worry. You can do a lot of things most of us can do anyway, such as transform, so there's nothing to be ashamed of. Grumping to himself, Naruto begrudgingly accepted the fact that magic looked like it was impossible for him. Didn't mean he wouldn't try again later though. Looking to liven up the mood, Mira smiled and tapped his shoulder. Come on, chin up. Anyway, I just had an idea, you should totally start a daily diary. Looking at her with an unimpressed glance, Naruto raised an eyebrow. Isn't that stuff for girls? I got better things to be doing with my time. Frowning, Mira stood back, hands on her hips. I'll have you know it is not girly. My brother Elfman has one, and he's the manliest guy in the whole guild. Naruto raised an eyebrow. That massive human is your brother. I suppose it makes sense though, he does have your hair. Nodding once, Mira then walked up to him and poked his chest. That's right, and he does write a diary, and now so will you. Take me back to the guild and we'll get started. She then jumped, fully trusting Naruto to catch her in his arms. Shouting out in surprise, he just grabbed her and looked down at the smug girl. What's wrong with you? I could have dropped you. Shrugging, Mira looked up at him with a wide smile. But you didn't, did you? You're such a gentleman. Grumbling to himself, Naruto started running, before taking a large leap and soaring to the roofs. Within a few minutes from the initial suggestion, Naruto was now seated before a little book with Mira hovering over him. Come on, just write down something, anything. Who knows, you do this, and it may help you find a way home. Naruto pouted at the gentle pressuring, and crossed his arms with a huff. But I don't wanna. Grabbing a cheek, Mira squealed softly and shook his face. Oh, you are so cute. Come on Naruto, you can do this. For me. It was then Naruto realized just how deadly this woman could be. Upon turning to look up at her in annoyance, Naruto was subjected to the most wide, starry eyes look of all time. Her mouth was curled up in a tiny smile, while both hands were clasped beneath her chin in the most endearing way. Any future complaints instantly died on his tongue after a few moments of being subjected to the look. It was near impossible to resist, and Naruto couldn't help but wonder just what this girl had been doing to practice such a devastating technique. Turning and beginning to write, Naruto couldn't help but wonder if he'd be able to get Naruto to make the same face. Finishing off scribbling, Naruto dropped the pen, closed the book and stood up. Turning to Mira, he held it out. Here you go, you hold on to it if you so desperately want me to keep writing in it. I'd shred it within a day. Smiling, Mira took it and slipped it down her top. Naruto instantly froze and stared at where it disappeared, wondering how the book managed to get so lucky. Patting it, Mira then winked at Naruto. I'll find you tomorrow and we can work on it from there. Now scoot, I have work to do. Watching the extremely friendly woman slowly turn and stroll away, Naruto shook his head. That girl was a mystery. It seemed like she enjoyed seeing Naruto flustered. Must be why she was fairy tales covered girl. Evil woman. Remembering his deal with the Kyuubi, Naruto ran outside and jumped into the guild roof. Settling himself, he closed his eyes and let his consciousness fade. You're back sooner than I expected. What have you found? Standing before his inner demon again, Naruto grinned up at it. What, you didn't think I'd follow through with my end? And here I thought you knew all about me. Sniffing, the massive fox shook itself. If there was ever one mildly passable quality about you, it's that you can keep a promise. Now tell me what I want to know. Raising an eyebrow at the Kyuubi, Naruto took the compliment without any further mention. He then frowned as he struggled to remember what Mirajane explained to him. Alright, apparently this dimension has a different form of natural energy. The gold stuff floating around was actually something called... Damn, what did she call it? I do not know, I think. Somehow it's connected with these people, being able to create magic. Something to do with their spirit reaching out and touching the energy. Raising a furry brow, the fox looked down at him. Is that what you were doing before? Naruto nodded. Yeah, I tried making magic but it didn't work. Mirajane said she felt something briefly, but it disappeared shortly after. The fox snorted. Of course, she did. You went and started tapping into my own reserves, you stupid creature. How could you not notice? Eyes widening, Naruto realized his mistake. I thought I was only tapping the Edenano though. The fox rolled its enormous eyes. Trust you to make that mistake. You must have defaulted to my chakra. Fool. Ignoring the snip, Naruto tipped his head to the side as he thought. So, now that you know what this is, would you try allowing some into you? It doesn't change me when I use it. It just feels different. The fox shook its head. No, I'm quite content with my own substantial power. I need no additives from some pathetic world. Shrugging, Naruto let the fox think what it wanted. Whatever then. I guess you'll start working on figuring out a way home now then. Snorting, the fox nodded. I'll have a better chance of working something out than you with your limited thinking. Leave me now and let me work. I shall contact you if anything comes to mind. Do not disturb me before then. Nodding, Naruto turned and slowly faded from view. Opening his eyes, Naruto became aware of a commotion below. His ears tuned into Natsu screaming indignantly about something, while some hushed whispers ran through the gathered crowd. Crawling to the edge, the blonde poked his head over the gutter and looked down. His eyes widened in surprise when he saw what looked like a swamp-green frog dressed in official-looking robes, holding out a piece of paper. The top view of it wasn't all that great a position to gauge what was going on, so sliding to the shadowed side on the building, Naruto slipped down and landed softly on the outskirts of the group. 11 charges of property damage. Erza Scarlet, you are under arrest. Tucking away her last name in his memory, Naruto frowned as the group let out a unified gasp. Taking another look at the frog, he could now see it was wearing this thin blue top hat thing that sat tall and proud in the middle of its head. It had this blue, long-sleeved overcoat on with a white robe beneath it, stretching all the way to the ground and covering its feet. Rolling up the piece of paper, it tucked it away and motioned to the horse-drawn carriage behind it. If you would please come quietly, I believe it would be in both our best interests. Like hell I'll just let you up and take Erza in the middle of our fight. Natsu exploded into flame and made to attack the frog, but was quickly smothered by several other guild members. That dog piled him into the ground to prevent him doing anything stupid. That didn't stop the creative flow of curses flowing from his mouth however. Ignoring the mess, Naruto checked out the carriage. It only had 2 guards by it, so they obviously didn't expect much resistance from the strong woman. Frowning, Naruto crept over to it. Something like this would normally warrant a few more guards at least, especially with the reputation Erza seemed to have. The frog turned and began walking, fully expecting Erza to follow. A number of indignant voices began rising from the crowd as it left, asking for more information. Natsu's was easily the loudest, followed surprisingly by Kana. She may have been an alcoholic, but it seemed she had a fierce sense of loyalty. Enough. Let them take Erza for now, we shall find out more in the future. For now, everyone back inside the guild. Elfman, bring Natsu with you. Hearing the short man's powerful voice break through the rising noise, Naruto watched as the group quickly fell silent before they started shuffling inside. Natsu was the only one who kept screaming indignantly, struggling to free himself from under Elfman's massive arm. Shaking his head, Naruto allowed a small smile onto his face. Natsu reminded him so much of when he was younger. Turning back to the carriage, he saw the guards holding the doors open as Erza neared. Quickly glancing around, Naruto brought his hands together in the ram seal. Transform. The pull of smoke went up and a tiny lizard shot towards Erza. Dashing in, it jumped onto her shoe without notice, riding it up and into the wagon with her. Inside the guild, everyone had sat down at a table and for once, were completely silent. No one had expected this turn of events. No one could understand why the council was arresting Erza for property damage, especially after she and her group had managed to save the guildmasters. The only noise anyone could hear was Natsu's muffled screams from under a glass cup, the young mage having been turned into a tiny dragon and restrained. Mikao and Wakaba sat over by the back of the room, stewing silently at the injustice. How could the council slap something like that on Erza? It's just not right. Taking a deep breath through his pipe, Wakaba blew the resulting smoke stream into the air above his head. No, it's not. But even if you're innocent, if the council says you're guilty. Closing his eyes, Mikao sighed unhappily. This shouldn't be allowed. I can't see how a small group of people has power like that. Wakaba nodded. Too right. I would have run in there with everyone else to get her back if Master hadn't said stop. Mikao looked to the roof, the air above them hazy from his friend's smoke. I know. Poor Lucy seems to be taking it hard too. Erza was something of an idol to her. Looking across, Wakaba grimaced. I hope she doesn't get too down on it though. It wouldn't be healthy. The girl in topic was up at the bar, her head resting on the bench top, her body limp and unresponsive. Mirajane dotted about worriedly as she tried to lift her spirits. Come now Lucy, don't worry too much about this. This is Erza we're talking about. If anyone can handle this, it's her. From the bench, Lucy shook her head. It's not that I'm unhappy about, it's that they singled her out for the punishment. Natsu, Gray, Naruto and even myself and Levi had a hand in the damage. So why should she face it alone? Sighing, Mir looked down at the girl and smiled. With an attitude like that, we can be sure she'll make it home. Our thoughts make her strong. She'll be back before you know it. Looking up at her gratefully, Lucy nodded. Yeah, I guess so. It's just tough waiting. Sitting up, Lucy stretched and then looked around. Hang on, where's Naruto? He seemed so much like Natsu, that I'd have thought he'd be creating just as much of a fuss. Looking around, Mira nodded. Come to think of it, I haven't seen him for a while. Master, do you have any idea where he could be? Opening one eye, the old man looked over at them from his seat on the bench top. Who? Naruto. Grunting, Makarov closed his eye. How should I know? He's not a part of the guild or anything. Rolling her eyes, Mira got back to rubbing a cup. It seemed that was his response to anything about the blonde. She had a bit of an idea that Makarov didn't know what he was doing, just chose to ignore it. Turning, the white-haired girl busied herself with cleaning up the never-ending mess at the bar, in an effort to keep her mind on other things. Bouncing along gently, Erza sighed as she looked out the barred windows. She had no idea what was happening, but wasn't too worried about it. Hearing a scuttle of tiny feet, Erza looked down and saw a little lizard looking up at her curiously. Smiling, she reached out and scratched its head. How did you get in here? You won't like where we're going. The lizard turned a head to the side so it could look up at her. Where are we going though? All I know is you've been arrested for a bunch of smashed stuff. Raising an eyebrow, Erza retracted her hand and studied the creature for a few moments. Naruto. Running up onto her lap, the lizard nodded. Yeah, I changed back, but I don't think the guards would like it all that much. So, where we headed then? Rolling her eyes, Erza shook her head. No, what's more important is what you are doing here. You should be back at the guild. The lizard Naruto laughed. Why? I'm not a part of the guild. Makarov can't tell me to do anything. Even then, I'd still come. I wouldn't let a friend get taken away for something stupid. Laughing, Erza started scratching Naruto's head again. Well, thank you then. The company is nice. Falling quiet, the two then just enjoyed the motion of the carriage as it bumped around. After a little while though, Erza heard a strange soft noise coming from her lap. Looking down, she saw Naruto had his eyes closed and was resting his head on her leg. Realizing he was snoring, Erza chuckled softly to herself and kept scratching his head. Opening his eyes, Naruto stretched. Looking around, he saw he was in a small brown room. The hell? The bump sent him onto his side and he scrambled back to his feet. Realizing he still had 4 of them, Naruto raised an eyebrow. That was unusual. Looking up, he saw a glint of light. Crawling up, he poked his head out the top and looked around. Right above him was a large amount of red hair flowing down someone's back, the well-kept tresses conforming perfectly to the body beneath as the girl walked. He realized it was Erza. She must have dropped him in her pocket after he fell asleep. Taking his eyes off her, Naruto took a look around the place they were in now. It appeared to be a massive walkway, with huge grey pillars off to his right, stretching way up to meet a roof high above his head. To his left were doors that lead to mystery rooms, the wood surrounding them ornately trimmed in gold and silver. Above that were enormous cubes of granite and marble, each looking like it weighed about 3 tons. All in all, it looked very much like a palace, and Naruto instantly got the feeling that whoever worked here was very rich, or powerful, or most likely, both. Feeling a bump, Naruto looked around and realized they had stopped. The frog thing had knelt down and Erza had visibly tensed. Frowning, he crawled back into the bum bag and waited. A smooth male voice reached his ears, but was too soft for him to really make anything out. Erza was much louder though, seemingly accusing whoever it was of setting this whole thing up. Listening closer, Naruto began to hear the man as he walked up to stand beside Erza. The old councilmen feared they would share the blame of Lullaby, so decided to push it onto someone else. You ended up being their scapegoat. Physically tensing, Naruto had to hold on tight as Erza whirled around to face this guy. Shut up. I do not need you here to tell me this. Naruto could almost feel the man shrug. Whatever. I was just coming to warn you before the trial. His voice then dropped to a whisper and Naruto nearly missed his parting words. Don't say anything about our past though, okay? For both our sakes. Hearing his steps fade, Naruto frowned. Who was this guy? He clearly had something to do with Erza's past, and if the small amount Naruto had heard was anything to go by, it probably wasn't anything good. Feeling the woman start walking, Naruto settled down and waited. We will now begin this mage's trial. Erza Scarlet, in regards to Eisenwald and Lullaby, you are accused with causing massive damage to Ashibana Station, the damage of the Ryusuke Gorge Railway, and the destruction of the Guildmaster's meeting Call and Clover. According to witnesses at the scene, the culprit was an armored female. How do you plead? Bugger this. Jumping out of the pouch, Naruto landed on the ground with a splat. Running back a bit, he released his transformation and exploded back to normal. He grinned internally at the shocked gasps of the old people conducting this pathetic trial. Stepping forward, he pointed at Erza. She pleads not guilty. He thrust a thumb to himself. I destroyed just as much as she did. Probably even more. Tatsubaro. The magistrate looked down condescendingly at the boy. Who are you? What are you doing here? Naruto frowned up at the man. Who cares? I am who I am, and I am here to take at least half the blame from Erza. Looking over the two, the man called out to the guards. Get this nuisance out of here immediately. Sir. Rushing forward, the guards each grabbed one of Naruto's arms and began pulling. Despite their strong pulls though, Naruto didn't budge an inch. He didn't even recognize their efforts as he kept shouting. How can you old farts go blaming something like this on her? She didn't do anything wrong. Would you rather have every guildmaster dead instead of a broken house? Turning to face Naruto, Erza sent him a dark look. Turning back to the council, she bowed. I apologize for the interruption. Instantly having the wind taken from his sails, Naruto faltered and looked at her incredulously. Say what? Sighing, the magistrate waved a hand at the two of them. Throw them in jail for the night. Naruto and Erza now leant against the walls of a stone jail cell. Erza was glaring darkly at Naruto, and he was staring defiantly back. They hadn't said anything since they were thrown in, and the tension was palpable. Eventually though, it was Erza who broke the silence. Why did you do that? Snorting, Naruto raised an eyebrow. What? Jump in and try save you from a clearly biased trial. Oh, I dunno, maybe because it was completely bogus. Frowning, Erza shook her head. You heard what was said before. I was to have the blame laid on me and then freed. Naruto shrugged. I don't care. I wouldn't stand for something cowardly like that. They need to man up and take the blame when they make a mistake. Sliding a hand over her face, Erza sighed. Now I feel like I'm sitting in here with Elfman. Look, it's not that I don't appreciate the gesture, and I'm honestly grateful you came, but things would have gone so much smoother if you hadn't jumped in. Crossing his arms, Naruto looked away rebelliously. I still don't care. Realizing she wouldn't be able to change his mind, Erza shook her head. You're impossible. They then fell silent for a bit, more relaxed after hanging everything out to dry though, so it wasn't as uncomfortable as before. Looking out the window at the moon, Naruto sighed. Remembering something, Naruto looked over at Erza. So that guy who confronted you in the hall. What was it he was talking about? The red head visibly stiffened when Naruto mentioned this. She looked across awkwardly, and worried her lower lip. I wasn't aware you were awake at that time. Naruto nodded apologetically. Sorry, but you bumped me awake. So, what was that? Looking down at her hands, Erza played with the gauntlets over her fingers. She took a moment but eventually replied. I'd actually rather not talk about it if that's alright. Just some things I'd rather not remember. Frowning, Naruto stared at her but let her be. As he sat though, Naruto suddenly felt a strong pull at his mind, and he found his attention being pulled internally. Human, for the death god's sake, can you hear me yet? Yes, what's your issue? He heard the fox grumble in his head. You are too stupid to even realize when I'm trying to tell you something. I was contemplating how to get home when I felt an anomaly within the vicinity. Can you see anything? Standing, Naruto went to the barred window and looked out. Squinting, Naruto could vaguely make out a strange blue glow in the distance. Yeah, I can see something in the sky. Is it? The fox growled lowly. Perhaps. It felt like a dimensional pull, much like what happened with that cretin who sent you here in the first place, just nowhere near as strong. Get over there now and monitor it. Turning to look back at Erza, Naruto sighed. He didn't really know how he was going to break this to her. The girl seemed to detect his discomfort and looked over. What is it? Frowning, Naruto pointed out the window. I can feel something that feels a lot like what brought me here. I really want to go check it out. Rising to her feet, Erza walked over and squinted out over the distance. Seeing the blue light, she nodded. It seems that it may be a way home for you. Go, investigate it. Don't worry about me, I'll be released in the morning. Naruto grinned. Sweet. I'll leave a clone behind so the guards don't get suspicious. Erza nodded approvingly. That would be a good idea. We wouldn't want to create a scene. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, nothing more than we already have. Generating a clone, he brought his hands together in a ram seal and disappeared. Place now occupied that little lizard again. Running up the wall, he reached the window. Hearing Erza though, Naruto paused. Good luck. Smiling as best he could, Naruto nodded once and disappeared outside. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the other videos that I have created, and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.